Hello, everyone, and welcome back again for another special Tuesday edition of the Rodeo Joe Show. Today, we're going to be covering a couple hot topics that happened throughout the night and a little bit today, and we will conclude with a rundown of Monday night's game between the Browns and Jets. First of all, open things up. A big trade happened last night. With the Steelers and going after Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Dolphins. Didn't take him long to get his deal that he asked for, or his trade, I should say. And Pittsburgh gave the Dolphins, I believe they both swapped some later round picks. I think the details are kind of somewhat undisclosed with that, but primarily it was basically a trade. And Pittsburgh gave up their first-round selection next year's draft. How I feel about this is I think it's a very bold move, very uncharacteristic of the Steelers to make such a move like that. But Fitzpatrick is a heck of a player, and I think it's a great move. We've seen signs that the secondary could use some help, and for a good bit of the Mike Tomlin era, I would even say that the secondary has been suspect, despite how good or bad some of the defenses have been that they've had through the years. Their secondary was always suspect, and it just really revamps that back into that defense. And reports are that they're going to move him to safety, which I guess is ideally what position that he really wanted to play, and so it seems to work out good for him. It works out good for Pittsburgh. I really like this move, to be honest. It's like I said, it's a very bold move, especially considering obviously the news that they were dealt with this weekend with losing Roethlisberger. It just kind of tells me that this team isn't giving up, and they still have high hopes and expectations for the season, and they're putting a lot of faith in Mason Rudolph, and apparently, they think they can win with him. So, hats off to them. I mean, you see the polar opposite on the other end from the team that they got him from in the Dolphins, where they're done. They're just. I mean, it's kind of sad to see, but they're for lack of a better word, somewhat tanking already, and so it's a great move for Pittsburgh. I'm curious to see how it really plays out for him. And there's also talks that Jalen Ramsey wants out of Jacksonville, and he wants a trade to be done soon. I've seen a lot of people say that the 49ers would be a good fit for him. I could see that. I could see that being a good spot for him, and really kind of push San Francisco over the top with an already pretty stellar defense. Just to have him to complement Richard Sherman on the other side would just be, a great asset to that defense. But the thing that irks me, and I really can't stand, and it's just with today's culture in the NFL, just kind of how these players act, is I caught a comment that he said where he said that he wants to play against Tennessee if I'm still here. Well, that right there, just to me, is just like you want to play, but yet you're basically just saying you're done with the team. We all saw his little outburst they had on the sidelines with Marone, and you're just trying to play this victim card that then he goes out on social media and also says that the team's trash, the fans are trash, coach is trash. All they want to do is, I believe he said something about all they care about is crab trays and drugs. I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, I guess, you can feel that strongly against, your team or your fan base or your organization that you play for or whatnot. But it's just, I just want to see people just shut up and play football. And, I'm just tired of seeing all this, this attention seeking that these guys want want to grab, because at the end of the day, they are human beings. They are entitled to their own opinion. But at the same hand, you've got some 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old kids that are aspiring to be you, and they're the future, and they're looking up to you as kind of a role model. And sometimes you might want to kind of pump the brakes on some of that stuff that you say, because kids are influenced by anything, and they'll gravitate towards anything that player does, if what have you, his interests and the way he carries himself and the things that he says. And it's a shame that some kids probably might adopt that same kind of mentality, and it's just not for the game. It's not good for the game. It's not good for football in general. And you got guys like him saying that, people holding out for this, that, and the other. And you got reports of and how many other reports are we going to hear this week of Antonio Brown doing something negative? He just keeps coming out and this, that, and the other. And now he's farting in a doctor's face, and it's like, come on now. What is this all about? And the thing about it is, these are all allegations, and I will give you that. They're purely nothing but that, just an allegation. He said, she said at this point, but that's kind of a stretch for a doctor to come out and say that he just literally farted in his face. I don't know about how I feel about that. It just seems like this guy just has a storyline that just travels him everywhere he goes. Outside of how I feel about him personally, I think Ramsey would be a good addition to any team that is in need of a good number one shutdown corner. And I couldn't see any better spot for him than the 49ers. I'd have to agree with that. And that also brings me to another topic. I spoke on it yesterday and was completely shell-shocked and could not believe that it actually happened. But Pat Shurmur announced that Daniel Jones will be the starter for this upcoming game. And I spoke on it a good bit yesterday, and it's just crazy that they just are going to him that soon and think he's going to be that answer. I don't know if it's so much of a, I think this could, rejuvenate the team, or if it's just kind of like he's tired of all the backlash from the media and this, that, and the other with Eli, and he's just like, all right, you think we can do better with somebody else? Here you go. Here's our guy, and then just shut up and leave me alone about it. And maybe that has a lot to do with it. I don't know, because I really think that Daniel Jones could be something good, but I'm just afraid that putting him in this situation like this is way too soon, because the Giants aren't that good of a team, and he will build with the team throughout the year, but sometimes that can have a negative effect on a player. We've seen it time and time again, and just be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, on the same hand, too, for whatever reason, and I have no idea, so I won't even really discuss this that long because I think it's pretty open and shut, but people are even questioning whether or not Eli Manning should be considered a Hall of Famer. Yeah, well, that's ridiculous if you don't think he should be a Hall of Famer. The man won 2 Super Bowls. We forget about all those great years that he had early and mid into his career with the Giants, and we tend to forget also that for the longest time he had more rings than his big brother that is worshipped throughout the league, and for them to just even question that whether or not he is a Hall of Famer or not. I will say that he's like kind of right there on the kind of tipping point, if you will. But the 2 Super Bowls that he had, especially beating an undefeated New England team. I mean, look at all these quarterbacks that are in the Hall of Fame that just won 1 Super Bowl. I mean, does Joe Namath really deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? I don't think so, but he won AFL Player of the Year and guaranteed a victory in Super Bowl III, and he's a Hall of Famer. So, and that's basically all he's done. But I digress with that. And this is my last topic that I'm going to discuss before I get into the Monday night game that I'm sure people want to hear about. Is that it's newly reported that Cam Newton has an issue with his foot, and they're uncertain about his status for this upcoming game. It just seems like a lot of these quarterbacks are just, and I can't recall a season where it's been of this magnitude. Let's say that he doesn't play. I mean, you're looking at a, Nick Foles right off the get-go out for, a vast majority of the season if he even comes back. Ben Roethlisberger, Drew Brees. I'm going to throw Cam Newton into this mix, and we're only 2 weeks into the season. It's just crazy. I don't know if they're speculating that had anything to do with how he's performed in the first 2 weeks. But if it is of any indication to it, maybe that explains why he has kind of underperformed to the somewhat standard that he kind of set himself. But hopefully, all these guys can kind of bounce back and return from injury, because, that's the last thing that the NFL needs is a league with, that's quarterback driven, to have, a fourth of your starting quarterbacks missing time, an extensive amount of times for that matter. But I digress. Like I said yesterday, this is going to be kind of a shorter episode due to the fact that there was only one game last night, but I did feel the need to cover some of those topics with you guys and just kind of let you know how I felt about them. But first, we will get into the game. Browns and Jets. It kind of went like what most people would have thought it went. I think a lot of people really expected a lot more out of Cleveland. The score definitely kind of isn't a good factor and doesn't really tell the whole story of what took place in that game. Looks like a 20-point dominant performance, which you could say, yeah, it was. But I don't know how you can win by 20 points on the road and it still looked like a disappointment. But it kind of did. And for those Browns faithful out there, I'm not bashing Cleveland by any means. That's not what I'm trying to do here. There was signs and spurts and different things that they did yesterday that show you that they are capable of being great and being able to compete with these top teams. But you just need to see it on a more consistent basis. And you thought that this would be a great test and not so much a test, because the Jets weren't really much of a test last night. They really weren't much of a team, to be honest. But regardless, they're an NFL team, and they needed to come out and kind of just assert their dominance, play some of their best ball, and, quite frankly, kind of be this sort of, dominance on a scale of the last, maybe 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. Baker Mayfield sitting on the bench because they're just that far ahead and they don't have anything to prove. And it's not going to be a hard, rough day in film study. But unfortunately, with a 20-point win, they still have a lot of stuff that they need to work on. Starting with Baker, there was plenty of missed throws that he had, and he hasn't looked incredibly accurate this season so far. And but the guy is a winner, and Cleveland fans and faithful, you don't need to worried about this guy. He'll find a way to get out of this slump that he's in, and he'll get things together. Chubb ran incredibly well last night. When he needed to, he's going to be a great guy, good bell cow type running back for you guys. And that defense, they played scary good last night. They had moments where they had so many guys that were headed to the ball, made good gang tackles, just really, really played an outstanding game. Myles Garrett was just basically in the backfield the entire game, it seemed. He was always in a quarterback's face. He pretty much took Simeon out of the game and brought in Folk. But with that being said, he needs to get his composure together and stop with these penalties. I mean, he accounted for I believe 35 yards of penalties for them with the 2 roughing the passer calls and then the offsides. You can't do that. This team is, they committed 18 penalties in their first game, 8 penalties in the second game. You just can't be doing that. They need to clean it up. Baker needs to he needs to polish himself up and kind of come back to the guy that everybody saw last year and be the player that everybody expects him to be. And, like I said, I don't mean to, sound too negative towards Cleveland. I'm just trying to be realistic here and provide honest, feedback, because that just goes back to what I was saying before, where you have all these issues that they have, these miscues, what have you, and then what happens? They have a great fourth down stand, get the ball back. I don't know if it was the very next play or the play after that, but what happens? Slant route across the middle. Odell Beckham, 89 yards, touchdown, snap, just like that. And that's the kind of playmaking that they can do. That's the kind of explosiveness they can have. And speaking of Beckham, he had a heck of a return to MetLife Stadium. He really played well and showed signs that, he's going to be dangerous. Him and Baker together, they're going to be a great tandem. If Baker can just kind of clean himself up a little bit and be a little bit more crisp, they're going to be a good team. And now that with everything with Roethlisberger, with Pittsburgh going down, and it's still early in the season, we don't know what we can expect from Baltimore. Are they going to play at this elite level still? And is Cincinnati going to bounce back, or are they going to be bottom, dwelling doormats for the division? You don't know. But one thing's for certain, you do know that you are facing a rival that is without a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. Not taking anything from Mason Rudolph, but he's not Ben Roethlisberger, so it's when the opportunity is there for them to make a stand on in this division. But unfortunately, they're not really going to go too far if they don't clean this act up and Baker doesn't start getting a little bit more crisp out there. But it's still early in the season, and they can definitely improve on a lot of things. And I don't think that Cleveland fans have anything that they should worry about, except unfortunately it doesn't get easy for them. They get to host the Rams on Sunday Night Football this upcoming week, so that's going to be a tough challenge for them. And that'll be a good opportunity for them to come in and actually prove people that, hey, we can play a complete game and just forget about what we did, in the first game, and don't look at the negative that we had in our, second game. A win's a win, and it'll be a great chance to, like I said, a good proving grounds game to see if they are really what everybody expects them to be. But that wraps up today's episode, and thank you all for listening, and appreciate all the support again. I can't stress it enough. But I look forward to coming on here Friday, and we will get to talking about Week 3, and I will talk to y'all then.